And now,
it's 10 a.m.
Let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. Happy, what is today? Wednesday.
Today's Wednesday. I'm with you. I have no idea what day it is. It will help a little bit because college football will arrange it for a few weeks, and then the basketball season starts, and then we're thrown off again.
Are you still moving? Is that still going on?
Today's my last day.
God, you've been moving since late July.
Yeah, I actually have. So
that's not even that much of an overstatement. This is why you should have, either you've got to get a gaggle of friends to bang it all out in one day, but the constant back and forth.
I did that moving in. I had one friend come over, and he's a large guy, and he used to move furniture for a living, so he was helpful, and I had a truck. This time I just didn't have that much urgency, and I sold a lot of my stuff, so people came and took it out for me, which was nice.
So Ben's flush with cash. Look out.
Venmo. Thankfully, thanks for Venmo.
Ben's got a huge, a roll right now.
How much money do you think I have in my wallet right now?
Where do you think Ben's going for lunch?
I found this dollar. It's in terrible shape.
Wow, look at that. Ben is loaded. Oh, you do owe me lunch, too.
I do. That's right. $63.
Worst,
64 with this dollar bill that George Washington's face has been desecrated.
That had to be, by the way, the worst bet ever made. You betting against Team USA in basketball.
It was close. There were two games that were close. There were two games that were close. I almost had it. Had Nikola Jokic not decided to go 0 for 7 from the three-point line, I'd be eating a delicious chicken salad sandwich right now.
Man, that was the easiest bet ever. Next Olympics, you can bet against the USA women.
Won 61 games in a row. I like to live dangerously.
Oh man, well I'm glad to hear you're nearly moved. Or when's the party?
No party.
Isn't that you moving out of you having the vacant house? That's the recipe for the party before the next phase of the house. You need to
friend of mine moving right in. A former friend of mine is
moving in. Well, then we don't have much time.
Weekend, so we got to do it. Well, the cleaner's coming tomorrow, which is why I have to be out today.
Then we've got to do it tonight.
So we got to do it tonight?
The cleaners are coming? Oh. Christian, what are you doing tonight?
Going to Ben's house.
Yeah, we're going to Ben's house. What do we got to do? You have a cooler over there still?
The cooler is over there, but it is literally loading up the fridge tonight. That's what I'm doing after work. I'm going to the house.
There's going to be plenty of room.
I've got to get the silverware. I've got to get every little odd and end that is sitting on the floor still because there's no furniture in it. And then I need to empty the fridge and the freezer.
That's perfect. That's what I'm saying. Like Christian and I will show up. We'll have solo cups, so you don't have to worry about that. Paper plates.
My garbage can's full too. You got to take your garbage with you. That's the one thing. BYOGB. Bring your own garbage bag, because you got to take it. You got to take it home with you. There's no room to throw it away.
Sure, we'll do all that.
Yeah, we'll do that.
But yeah, we'll do all that for sure.
Well, you and I have made two bets on this show. One was me betting against the country of the United States of America. The other was you betting against the governor of the state of Utah, Britton Covey, that he would not make it as an Eagle. And not only is he now in year 3, he's on the opening night roster.
Yeah,
Covey is a 53-manner.
I'm absolutely happy to be wrong about that, first of all.
And as am I. I was rooting for Team USA.
I think it's a great story. I think he deserves all, sorts of credit. I mean, it's truly amazing. The reason that bet came about is I thought he should have stayed at Utah for his last year because his his chances of getting here were low, and his chances of making $1 zillion on NIL and being the, as you put it, governor of Utah, because he is the most popular person in Utah maybe ever. But no, it's great. It's taken him a while to build it, which makes the story even, because I'll tell you this, being on the practice squad, you're not making a lot of money. Now, when he got signed to the active roster, he was making some dough, but it's not like he would have made more certainly in college than he would on an NFL practice squad.
I think his first year, you're right, he would have made more in Salt Lake as a member of the Utes. However, I don't know how advanced NIL was, even at that point versus 3 years later where we are, how well things are going.
But practice squad guys aren't making a lot.
No, they're not.
But to get here is amazing. And it's really the story of the story that really sums up Britton Covey, if this is where we want to start the show today, and why not? It's football season now. Is he played pretty much day one in camp. And you know his recruiting story, right? Bronco didn't want him. He was too small. Kerry Whittingham was his high school coach and told, the Ute staff, said, like, no, this guy's a legit athlete. Don't dismiss him because of, his size. And they were obviously familiar with him for a long time, and he comes to Utah. And from his first camp, Ben, he played. And I think Witt's first comments, or maybe it was Britton's first comments, but basically the reasoning for him playing is he said, I'll return punts. Yeah. He's like, I identified the fastest way for me to contribute to the team, and it was returning punts.
Correct me if I'm wrong. He kind of did the Little League thing where at his high school, they were like, well, you're the best athlete, so you're the quarterback. And he just ran around, right? Like, he wasn't ever known for his big arm, but he wasn't a receiver in college or in high school, excuse me.
No, he was a quarterback.
He was the quarterback. And they were just like, just get the ball and you're faster than everybody and nobody can catch you. It wasn't about his ability to throw the ball. It was ability to do exactly what you're talking about.
And he won the state title.
Yeah. Be the athlete. Be the best athlete on the field and move the ball up the field, however you have to.
All of a sudden, this, Rudy comes to mind, right? 5 foot nothing, 100 and nothing. Guy is playing D1 football and starting day one because he wants to do and excel at something nobody else wants to do, and even fewer people are truly good at it. Became a weapon day one, and then, his evolution of his career at Utah, took off from there. But in the NFL, and this is true in the NBA, Ben, we could, we can make comparisons here. But as soon as you get to that level, nobody's arrived. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, and I'm sure there are a lot of different attitudes coming into camp. Like, I'm going to do this and I'm not going to do this. And the stories like Britton, or I'd even throw like Taysom Hill into this category. The guy that raises his hand and says, I'll go kill it on special teams for you.
You're right.
I'm not going to demand pass opportunities out of my quarterback. I know that's not necessarily what you're looking for, but I'll go run on special teams and I'll make it happen over there, and you call me if you need me. And when you need me, I'll knock it out of the park for you. But I realize how things are done here. I realize how you start here.
And
that's a winner.
On top of all of it, Covey has done it with as good an attitude as any player I remember at any point. Now, he has some built-in advantages that allow him to be playing with house money. He comes from one of the illustrious families in our state. The Coveys are renowned, and I would imagine there's money for him. So he's got a high safety net in that sense that he can pretend he's playing with house money. Whatever happens, great. I can make it. I can stick around. I might as well chase my dreams because worst case scenario, I have a good job waiting for me somewhere. But there are also kids who have that become extremely entitled, and he has never done that. To your point, he stepped in. He never said, you guys are making fun of me because I'm too small. How dare you? He never brought that on himself. I don't think he's the type of guy who's ever going to hold out for anything. So he has carried that A-plus attitude. Because I was up at practice the first day he was on camp at Utah, and I saw him, and I thought, what is that kid doing here? And he's just built on it over and over. So good for Britton Covey, making the Eagles.
All right, well, we need to move on to something even more important, obviously, than Britton Covey.
Okay.
I just saw this, and it came across at 10:03 from Jazz PR. And yes, breaking news. One of us has been mentioned in a press release.
Uh-oh.
Was it you, Ben?
I bet it wasn't.
Christian, were you mentioned in a press release from the Utah Jazz?
Not that I know of.
Oh, that leaves one person.
Was it an email or was it a
That
tweet?
leaves one person on the show whose name was just sent worldwide to press everywhere. Yes, that's me.
How many people you think are on this
Yes.
email blast?
Yes, that is me. Celebrity, you're welcome. Now, maybe I wasn't the headline of this.
I may not be the lead.
I may not be the lead. Dateline, Salt Lake City. Today, the Utah Jazz announced Lauren Green has joined their broadcast team as sideline reporter. Green will begin with the Jazz during the 2024-2025 NBA season. Green brings a variety of experience to the Jazz, having most recently served as a news and sports anchor and reporter at NBC News affiliate KOB4 in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Cool.
And also as a track and field analyst for the Mountain West Sports Network. She was previously a sideline reporter for the Pac-12 network and has covered NBA Summer League and NCAA basketball. Green graduated from the University of Nevada, Reno, where she was a member of the track team before going on to earn her master's in sports journalism from Arizona State University's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication.
Welcome, Lauren.
And then, yes, quite further down, granted, in the release, it says Jake Scott will host the Jazz pregame, halftime, and postgame radio shows, along with former BYU assistant coach Tim Lacombe.
Congratulations. Honestly, did you know you were back this year?
Sure.
Okay. Like, had that been conveyed to you?
Well,
Or did you just learn that you knew you were exactly... Because I don't want to pull back the curtain too far, but it's kind of year to year, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit year to year, and I'm in a different situation where I'm an employee of Bonneville Media, but the broadcast belongs to
the Jazz,
the Utah Jazz. So I work for, of course, Bonneville Media, but I also work for Caroline and Travis and over at the Jazz, and I'm not in the same building and those sorts of things. But yeah, I was. This isn't news, but this does make it officially.
That you're back.
Officially.
Congrats.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm excited about it. I love it. I love this gig. I love that gig. I love working with Coach. I love working with Ben. Like, all things are good in my world. And you know what? This Jazz season is going to be interesting. And I'm going to take it as kind of a challenge to produce some compelling radio, no matter where the season goes. And also, way down in the press release, Locke's going to be back for his 16th season.
Bowler Jack's back for year 20. Thurl Bailey back with Bowler. Holly Rowe is back with the Utah Jazz broadcast. This is making appearances in the pre-half and post, and will continue to contribute to live game broadcasts. So,
Booner, you want to know what season number this is going to be for old Booner? Christian, you want to get in on this? You want to take a guess? Just broadcasting, no.
Not since the days he's been
not
in pro
years
ball.
in the NBA.
I mean, it's been my whole life.
Over under 30?
Over.
It's definitely over 30.
Yeah. Is it 38?
37.
37.
Very good, Ben.
Okay. So he started when I was 1. It's amazing.
And Booner still bounces around pretty good.
And also, speaking of Britton Covey, has a great attitude. It's always fun to see Booner around.
Oh, no, he's a great dude.
I told you my Booner story. So I Booner, like I've said, I grew up in Salt Lake. Ron Boone has been a voice that I've heard my whole life. So I would see him around, and we've talked, and I've done the broadcast, filled in for Tim or filled in for you. So I've worked with Booner, certainly, but I didn't know, A, he knew what my name was, B, that he could recognize my face with the name. You see one side on radio, and I don't see him because he's downstairs and we're upstairs or whatever. And we're walking into the media room one time, I think it was before a game, and I'm walking past him because Boone goes in last because Boone stands in the back of the press conference room. He doesn't like to steal a chair. And I'm walking past him, and he stops me and yells in front of everyone, "Ben!" I didn't know he knew my name. "Yeah, Booner? Why don't you ever say hi to me?" He's yelling this in front of everybody. I said, Booter, I didn't know you knew who I was. And now we've been buddies ever since. Talks to me, says hi to me every time. I say hi to him. It's not a great story, but it meant a lot to me. Shout out Booner, 37 years.
Wow, feels good to be mentioned in a press release. Sure does.
Yeah, usually
Man.
it's a jail booking.
This is a good day.
Usually it's the police log.
This is a good day. Alema, Mike, back doing their thing. There's no word on if Mike is committed to do the first segment of the pregame show again this year, but I will be in touch. That is a very popular segment.
Does it say how many years you've been doing pre, half, and post?
No, they have no idea.
I didn't think so.
I'm surprised you read this email, by the way.
Yeah, I'm surprised you checked your email.
I have no idea what either of you were talking about. Why would I not?
Got the stars in his eyes.
Why would I not check my email? There you go. Jazz season is coming, Ben.
Congrats. In all honesty.
It's on the horizon. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I think we do a pretty good broadcast. I like teasing Locke, but Locke is amazing. Boone's great. I think, Ben, I listen around the country some, and I would put our NBA broadcast up there with anybody.
I agree.
It's cool to be back doing it again.
And selfishly, it's good for this show.
Oh,
a lot of people listen to Jazz games on the radio and hear you before or after the game, whether they're going to the game, leaving the game, or whatever they do. They don't have the ability to sit down and watch the game or go to the game, so they tune in and listen. They hear your voice, and then they hear you in the afternoon or midday. And
and why they're nice to and why it's great on both sides to do a kind of a hybrid type situation. It's the anchor of our station, so I'm pretty stoked to be involved with the anchor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jazz broadcasts have kind of determined the fates of many a sports radio station in this town for a long time. So stoked to be involved with that again.
You are unquestionably a barnacle on the anchor of this radio station.
Yeah, I know. Proud. You know what a barnacle is? Tough to get rid of.
Hard to
scrape off.
The invasive zebra mussel.
Yeah,
whatever,
exactly.
Whatever it takes.
I got it. Right there. Tell you what it takes. It takes keeping your head down. That's what it takes.
Oh, but man, I mean, my story with Booner, getting to know Tim Lacombe, getting to know Craig Bolerjack. Again, when I was young, I knew Craig Bolerjack as national broadcaster Craig Bolerjack, who moonlighted in Utah at times. I knew CBS Sports, huge college basketball games, huge college football games. That's how I knew of Bowler. So it's cool to have this type of talent. Not to mention Holly Rowe, who's one of the 5 most famous American sports broadcasters right now.
Yeah, I mean, probably about that. Then mention Thurl, who is a legend.
And then Thurl, who's a legend across the country.
Any sense. Yeah, right.
So it's very cool.
I told you about that hat that I had Thurl sign. Like my buddy who lives in Maryland lives in the same area that Thurl grew up in. And so there's my buddy's wife is on the PTA or whatever, and there's an administrator at the school who's randomly this huge jazz fan because of Thurl. Just has always been a Jazz fan. So I had Big T sign a hat, and I mailed it out there.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, the PTA and the administration relationship at that school is at an all-time high.
Perfect.
They work seamlessly together. That, Ben, is the power of Thurl Big T Bailey. No, we're lucky. We're lucky to work with some really really neat people. I tell people to do this all the time. Go look through all the legendary NCAA tournament moments. Like, go find a YouTube reel of like all the big shots and all this stuff in NCAA tournament. And Bowler's voice is littered throughout them.
And Thurl was in one of those games. Thurl's in, the second or third most famous basketball game ever played?
So we're lucky.
Yeah, we're lucky. It's very cool.
And then Lemma, local legend. And then Mike, who's here.
Yeah, I'm not trying to cut out the TV people. They're on TV leading up to the game, in all honesty.
I just wanted to make a joke about Mike. That's all. I was just reaching for that.
No knock to Lemma, which, man, we're starting the BYU preview show. I imagine Lemma's coming in. I'm not trying to break any news here. Maybe he hasn't. Maybe he's waiting for an email from.
Or is he doing Fridays?
The KSL Sports Zone.
Because usually he does Fridays with Coach.
But I think aren't they doing it today? Aren't they randomly doing it today because the game's tomorrow? So I think he's coming in probably today or wherever they're going. I should know where this is. I'm sure they're on
Yeah,
remote.
you probably should have caught up on this before you brought it up.
Anyways, yeah.
So 2 American success stories back to back. Britton Covey and yours truly.
Jacob Scott.
I mean, truly.
You're still
that's
making,
what this
still
country's
making
all about.
Practice squad money, though. But you are on the opening night roster.
I'm right there. Whose name was in a press release, Ben? Don't be jealous. Don't be jealous. You don't have to be. It's a bad look for you.
I was on the
That's
email
not
list.
Usually,
I was on the email list.
Yeah.
I was
you were.
CC'd.
You were made aware of my import today.
By you.
Oh, man. Stay tuned. More Jake and Ben coming up next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's time to break down the biggest stories of the day. This is the top 3 stories of the day on KSLSports.com. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben want to remind you to nominate the youth sports volunteer you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at KSLSports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals. Time for the top 3 stories of the day at KSLSports.com, brought to you by J. Brooks Jewelers. 2 locations to serve you, one on Winchester Street across from Fashion Place Mall, the other at Traverse Mountain in Lehigh. All right, Christian, where are we starting today?
Number 1, Mark Harlan opened up about Utah's NIL situation compared to other schools.
There's no real public document that I trust. I mean, there's some firms that put this out and put that out. What we've seen is just our growth, and our accelerated growth during the period has enabled us to do what we need to do. And that's really all that matters. I mean, we had a gigantic gain in men's basketball this last year in terms of NIL around the team, and really helped us get this next group of young men in. Football has really grown. I'm really proud of everybody's efforts and the authentic work that's really gone in. I don't know if it's ever enough, because our coaches are so good at recruiting and they go after the very best. But I'm really proud. I mean, look at the football team we're going to field on Thursday night, and along with a bunch of our other rosters. So I feel real good about it.
That was on Hans and Scotty yesterday, by the way. You can go read it at KSLSports.com. You can listen to it there as well. Bartle had a good write-up on it. I thought it was interesting that he mentioned the NIL at the men's basketball team, because I do think that sets some expectations that, like, hey, you are being invested in. Now the wins have to come, and they haven't. So,
I mean, I found part of that quote funny where he's saying, I'm really proud of everything and all the money we've raised. Now, it's never enough.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
It's never
don't
enough.
let the donors think that they're done.
I don't know how much they're investing in the basketball program. We'll see. I don't know how Harlan divides those. I know he's going to come on the radio and say that he's pumping zillions of dollars into the diving team, because that's what they're going to do. I mean, like I think about this with coaches all the time, where there's a constant clamor for giving assistant coaches more money. Like, oh, you've got to give an assistant, and it's like, okay, but are you just giving the same guy more money? Are you landing a better candidate? Like, what are you doing with that? So if you're pumping all this dough into basketball, well, who are you landing? How's that translating? And I believe that they've probably found a good way to do it for football, because football is where more needs to be invested and more is invested. Utah, we've had this discussion a bunch of times. Utah, sometime in the early 2000s, crossed from being a football or a basketball school to a football school. Mm-hmm. And the resources go into football. And that's been the catalyst for their journey to the Pac-12 and now the Big 12. So, I don't know. I guess with basketball, Ben, long story short, I'll believe it when I see it. And I believe Utah is efficiently raising and spending their money, though. They have a history of doing that.
I also suspect they are putting some NIL money into the women's basketball team. They landed a 5-star recruit. They've got another 5-star recruit who I think is coming in to work out, or is at least making a decision in the next little bit, at least a very high-level recruit. So there's got to be some money I would expect there. I thought Mark Harlan also made an interesting statement when he said this, and I think it was on purpose. He said it was a huge step up in budget, and obviously we go in with equal shares, and we go in with a pretty healthy budget into the Big 12. Going from Power 4 to a Power 4 doesn't make it easy, but certainly a whole different level of preparation than we had to go through the 12-plus years ago. Noting that they get an equal share day one is on purpose, because not everyone in our state is getting an equal share day one.
So, interesting stuff. Anytime, would encourage people to go give that a listen anytime the athletic director at a major university is on the station. And with Hanson Scotty, they do a good job with it.
And as he said, he didn't know what's accurate as far as what other teams are reporting on what their NIL spending is and how it compares to Utah. I will say I thought Utah was going to be really hurt during the launch of NIL, and thinking Utah would fall behind, and they've done a nice job keeping up with whatever you have to do to stay competitive, because they've stayed competitive even in the era of NIL. Even when teams like USC last year were spending a fortune on their roster, Utah was still a better team.
Got to pick the right people, Ben. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, you do.
And Utah will always be the type of university, and BYU, but maybe it's a different conversation a little bit, where they have to make a dollar out of a dime. It just is the case. Like, no matter how successful Mark Harlan says that the NIL thing is, it's not as successful as others. Because it's a smaller university. I mean, where it's located, all the things. The lack of oil money. Like, Oklahoma State is always going to have more NIL than Utah.
Yep. Truly because of oil. They have
because
a natural
of
resource.
Texas tea.
That people have made money off of in loads. Yeah.
From that university.
Yep.
You know, if the Pixar guy ever got off his duff, maybe Utah could compete.
We better hope this tech thing isn't a bubble. We better hope that Silicon Slope sticks around for a while.
But they've always got to have that mentality. It's the reason why I think they didn't spend like drunken sailors when they actually got the Pac-12 money, because they were used to competing on Mountain West money. And they were like, okay, well, we're not going to get crazy with this. We're going to do this smart. This is the dream. We've been, planning and dreaming about this forever. We're going to be smart about this whole thing. Like, even pushing back renovations to Rice-Eccles Stadium, because Chris Hill quite accurately, I think, was like, well, we've got to invest in other places first, and we will get to that, going down the lane. BYU's going to have to do, they've got an influx in cash. I'd be surprised if they went out there and spent like drunken sailors.
Agreed.
Now they'll let Ryan Smith spend like a drunken sailor on their basketball program.
Absolutely. And whoever, it's not just Ryan.
And whoever,
yeah.
right.
Ryan
Exactly.
is the placeholder that we just throw out there. Credit
Well,
Ryan.
whether he wants to or not, he's kind of the face of it.
Yeah. He certainly seems to be what started the revolution.
And he's a basketball guy.
Yeah.
And he's got NBA connections. You don't think that they didn't at least think about that when hiring, I don't know, the NBA guy to be their coach?
Yeah, right.
All right, what's next?
Number 2, bit of a surprise. The Broncos are keeping Jarrett Stidham and Zach Wilson.
What does the headline say? Why did you mention Zach Wilson? This headline is about Jarrett Stidham staying with my Denver Broncos. My Jarrett Stidham has made the roster. This was one of the big talking points on our show for the last 2 weeks. Stidham's my guy, and he has made the roster. I'm also very happy for Zach Wilson, as an aside, unrelated to the story. But they keep all 3 quarterbacks.
Well, I'm just assuming here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Jarrett Stidham's got to be Sean Payton's son-in-law, right?
Something's going on.
Is Jarrett Stidham his nephew?
Yeah, right. There's a kid somewhere that Jarrett Stidham is responsible for in the family.
Peyton's like, no, we'll keep him.
We'll keep him around.
But, Coach, you're pretty thin at linebacker. Stidham staying.
Shut it. We got Stidham.
Good for Zach for making it. I've said it from the beginning. I think this is a good spot for Zach to rebuild his career. He doesn't have any pressure in Denver. If anybody does, it's Bo Nix. It's certainly not Zach Wilson. You can play for a good coach. You can learn a good system. There's several examples of quarterbacks who have done under Sean Payton exactly what Zach Wilson is trying to do. I would hope that he's QB2, but I don't know. Never underestimate nepotism. Who knows?
Other news, Tim Patrick released, as we speculated about yesterday. He did not get traded. He's going to sign a practice squad deal with the Detroit Lions. But as you pointed out, Tim got paid already.
Yeah.
He signed a $34 million deal. He had an $18 million signing bonus. He had an annual salary of $11 million since then, and I think he played at least a year, right? Was that before last year?
Yeah, Tim's going to be fine.
He's made $30+ million already in his career. So he's in good shape. Good for Tim Patrick. And I think he will end up building his way up onto a better team, which is the first time anyone's ever said that about the Detroit Lions ever.
Oh, man, am I rooting for the Lions
yeah, that's
this
a cool
year.
team. It's too bad Jamal's not still there. But yeah,
and I love the Goff factor where he's, say, oh, you're going to trade me to Detroit, huh? Well, I'm just going to go out and beat you.
And I'm going to be rich.
Love it.
So, yeah, the Lions are going to be interesting to watch. How about the Browns keeping 4 quarterbacks, including Tyler Huntley, Deshaun Watson, obviously the starter there, Jameis Winston, the backup, and then both Tyler Huntley and DTR make the roster. That's why the Browns the Browns. You have 53 spots. You have 4 quarterbacks. What are you doing? And actually, your top 2 are pretty reasonable.
You know what that is? That might be, bad franchises overcorrect, That might have been, we had to sign 55-year-old Joe Flacco.
Flacco closed the season.
He was shopping for caskets.
Yeah.
we interrupted
in
his...
a crematorium, putting a down payment down.
Joe, we need you back, Joe.
Get out of that casket, Joe.
So maybe this is like an overcorrect. Like, we're not getting to that again. We're going to be 4 deep.
And as we mentioned, Britton Covey also makes the Eagles opening man roster for the first time in his career. So some local names I think a lot of people had circled that were really close to the chopping block ended up making it. Devon Bailey also made the Broncos roster. So.
All right. What's next?
Number 3, UConn is in talks to join the Big 12.
It seems like a support of about half the team. Well, it's less than half because there's not 12 teams. There's maybe a half dozen on board with UConn joining as a basketball team or Olympic sport only team for about the next 6 or 7 years, and then in the early 2030s, football having to make a major investment to step up and be a legitimate program to compete in the Big 12.
Ben, my natural inclination is to say, why? This just feels like stuffing cats into the wall. Does the Big 12 care too much about basketball?
Well,
because who cares?
Because UConn is different. Because UConn is the basketball school.
And North Carolina is the lacrosse school. Basketball does not matter.
But if they were I think we need to change a little bit how we view UConn and say, like, if North Carolina basketball became available, you would take them. No question about it. Or if Duke became available, basketball only, the Big 12 would jump all over it to take them. UConn is in that conversation. UConn is one of those schools. And I think it's fair to recognize that they have a legitimate level of cachet that they bring from a basketball program exclusively, even if the football team is in the dregs.
Plus, basketball-only stuff feels very much like the WAC in the 90s.
I'm a little bit with you there. It feels wonky.
You know what I mean? So, I guess Notre Dame does it with ACC and all that stuff, but I don't know. I don't love this idea. Now, like adding Florida State, all right, like I'd listen to that, but what are I don't know. I guess this is the strategy other than like Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado have tremendous value. UConn has tremendous value in a sport that's only worth like 20% of the whole pie.
Yes, but it is, again, it's one of the schools. This isn't, I'm trying to think of like, what's a mid-tier school?
Gonzaga's next. They'll add UConn and then they'll add Gonzaga.
Gonzaga is the comp, I guess, and I think UConn's probably a different stratosphere than Gonzaga.
But they won't stop at UConn. That's what I'm saying.
My thought is, are they doing this to kill the Big East? Like, is that just the goal? If
it is, that's stupid. They shouldn't care about the Big East.
If as much as what they're doing is not just what they're adding, but what they're killing off as far as competition goes, is that a good thing? Is that what they're trying to do? Because that was my second thought is, okay, UConn's the biggest basketball team in the country right now. They've got the best head coach. They've won back-to-back national titles. But does it also deal a fatal blow to another conference that lessens the competition, especially the basketball competition?
Ben, the Big East proved this case themselves back in the early 2000s when they just left football and then have just left the conversation altogether. Do you remember when the P5 was the P6? That was the Big East.
Yeah, and basketball still is. Basketball still is well, I guess now it's the P5 because Pac-12's dead.
The point is, nobody cares about the Big East anymore. It's not the P6. The Big East doesn't even play football anymore. I mean, nobody's clamoring to kill the Big East because the Big East is not relevant.
Georgetown doesn't matter. Some of their marquee schools don't matter anymore.
Don't matter.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of college athletics. Is the Big Ten banging down Georgetown's door? No. In fact, everybody who was anybody fled the Big East as fast as they could. And the fact that these basketball only schools were the only ones left standing, even the mighty Syracuse.
Yeah. That was the team I was going to bring up.
UConn themselves left the Big East. The Big East is a non-factor. Basketball is a non-factor.
In basketball,
I'm sorry.
They're not. They are, obviously, I mean, it's a basketball program. So the Big East matters a little bit in basketball, but it only matters because of UConn, which goes back to my point of you kill the Big East if you take UConn. You cut the head off.
UConn was not in the Big East like a year ago.
I know. But they have brought relevancy just by being there to the Big East. We know what the Big East is again.
I don't think they care about killing the Big East. They shouldn't.
That might be too conspiracy theory of me.
They shouldn't care at all about it.
Because I am trying to figure out why it's so important to get UConn to the Big 12.
Another reason not to prioritize basketball ever is that the most lucrative part of basketball, they don't own any part of it. Does that make any sense? Like, they can't sell the NCAA tournament. The conferences themselves cannot. That is all NCAA carve-out. That's how the whole organization is funded, by that tournament. And as you know, Ben, they hand out some return to schools in, what do they call those things? Credits or whatever they are?
Yeah.
So basketball is a non-factor. If you're making these big decisions and considering basketball, you're doing it wrong. The only reason the Big 12 is relevant right now is because it's the third best football league. That's it. The Big 12 was neutered when Texas and Oklahoma were taken from it. In the same way that the Pac-12 was neutered when USC and UCLA were taken. That you're just in the wind. And the Big 12 has tried to compensate by expansion, and it saved the league. But it does not make it indestructible by any means. And if you're messing around with all these basketball-related things because you take pride in you're the best basketball league, it doesn't matter. So if you're paying UConn anything, you're paying them too much.
UConn also is not a cultural fit with the Big 12, which, as we were talking about, is based a lot in oil money. And UConn is the waspiest of schools right now.
Very waspy.
Yeah. So it would change that aspect of it. And again, UConn has a lot of respect. But I think to your point, the fact that this isn't something that all the Big 12 presidents and athletic directors have agreed on immediately is a sign that this feels weird and isn't quite right at the moment.
Stay tuned. More Jake and Ben coming up next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Your home for the best college football coverage in Utah is on the KSL Sports Zone. Ready? It's a Thursday night opener for the Utes as they welcome in Southern Utah to Rice-Eccles Stadium. Your home for the best coverage of Utah football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, stay tuned. We're going to talk to Luke Martin coming up at the top of the 11 o'clock hour. He is the voice of the Southern Illinois Salukis. So we'll find out a little bit more about them coming up. Stay tuned for that. Right now, caller number 12, 801-575-ZONE. And you're going to win 2 tickets to the Doobie Brothers on August 30th at 7 o'clock. Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. Tickets will be sent electronically via Live Nation. Ben, real quick. ESPN did a one of those surveys about anonymous surveys of NFL players, 103 NFL players, and asked them a bunch of questions. I love these surveys, by the way. The NBA does the best one, by far. But anyway, top vote getters for most overrated quarterback. Who do you think was number one? NFL most
Overrated.
We can let Christian take a stab at this, too.
My guess is Rusty Wilson.
Christian?
Caleb Williams.
Hilarious.
This is your last day here, bud.
Josh Allen.
Oh, it's funny. That was my initial thought. And then kind of the consensus that he's number 2 still. You know, a lot of people still just believe, like, the default is he's the second best quarterback. I've said this a lot. I have sold all my Buffalo Bills stock. It pains me to do, turning my back on our friend Dalton Kincaid. But I just haven't seen enough there.
There was a tie for second between Jalen Hurts and Tua.
I think that speaks more to just the drop-off between how good Patrick Mahomes is and everybody else is.
I agree, but you know what's funny? And you look through all these types of surveys and you realize something, too, that just because you are an NBA or NFL player or whatever does not mean that you know what you're talking about.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. No question about it.
You know what I mean? Like most underrated quarterback, do you know who got the most votes? Is actually a tie.
So my fear here is it's going to be a guy who I would say you could make a real argument is most overrated is like Brock Purdy.
That's tied for first, Brock Purdy and Matthew Stafford. But see, the Purdy thing is that professional players, and I didn't really realize this until I got to know a few, they're so tied up in money as the scoreboard.
Yeah, yep.
As this guy must be good because he makes.
It's why Shaq hates Rudy Gobert.
It's why Shaq hates Rudy Gobert. That's this weird thing where it's the value system. That's the value system.
Yeah.
And so players will look and they're like, oh, Brock Purdy makes 50 cents. Well, that guy's way better than 50 cents.
Yeah. Which is funny because I actually think accurately Stafford probably belongs on this list as underrated. Stafford often goes overlooked, even dating back to Detroit, for a guy who has won a Super Bowl. He's also made $1 trillion. So it's like, well, no, the people in charge know how good he is. They paid him enough money to be the best player. And he's the best player on that Rams team. And was when they won a Super Bowl. So that makes, well, maybe he wasn't, but that makes sense. They've paid him like the best player.
So
hard to say he's underrated, I guess, in that sense. But he goes unmentioned. And I would say Brock Purdy, I would make an argument is overrated. Right? Like he gets talked about like he's a replacement level quarterback that
right.
A lot of quarterbacks would step in and do just as good a job.
I tend to agree. Top 3 quarterbacks, though, ranked, Ben? Patrick Mahomes, overwhelmingly with 291 votes.
Yeah.
And then Lamar Jackson at 2 and Joe Burrow at 3.
Okay.
Players see Lamar's athleticism. And I don't know. I think you can actually make an argument for Lamar Jackson at number 2, but I'll tell you that's why players do, is because he's such an incredible athlete.
Tom Brady was asked his top 5 quarterbacks, and he could only name 4. And he said Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. So to your point. And then they asked Peyton the same thing, and he threw in Justin Herbert, but he said the same 4.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Coming up next, we're going to talk a little BYU by way of Southern Illinois. The voice of the Salukis, Luke Martin, will join us straight ahead. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.